not have to declare to the sorry, been a long day already. Yes, to the taxman. Just a simple hey taxman before you have to sort of start submitting accounts and things, so that you if just what your limits are with these two allowances and how they play together.
So I did see that Gospel posted that into the QT community. Did you see that? She shared a trading allowance post.
I'm not. Yeah, it's. I'm not yet a member. So it was really just to find that information out.
Okay. Angela, if I don't, that's not a specific slide in the presentation, but if I don't then come back to cover it at the end, please do give me a nudge and remind me, and I absolutely will.
Thank you. You understand what I'm trying to. I know.
I do understand what you're trying to say. Yes, that's I do.
Good. Thank you very much.
So while we're letting everybody in, hello and welcome everybody on this lovely Wednesday. I am not Julia, I am Hannah. I am standing in for Julia today while she's at a strategy meeting, so I hope you'll forgive me if I do not sound as Julia does. We have the wonderful Tracy Robertson, who is a QT partner and specialises in helping small business owners and educators navigate self-assessment, which is quite scary for a lot of us. I'm sure she's going to share a lot more information with you throughout the day. And if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. If it's something that's to do with that specific section or that slideshow, maybe just raise your hand, then we know that it's relevant to that moment. If you've got percolating questions, I'm in the chat and I'll bring your questions up at the end. So Tracy, take the floor, please.
Okay, right. Let me just share my screen, because I hate to see myself. And can you still see the big purple screen, Hannah? You can. Lovely. Right. Okay. So first of all, I wasn't going to do Who Am I, because I thought that everybody would be from the community, and clearly you're not. So very, very briefly, who am I? My name is Tracy Robertson. I am the Small Business Accounts Coach. I am not an accountant. I am not here to tell you, oh, you must do this, or if you don't do this, HMRC will lock you up, or you'll get fined lots and lots, or whatever. I am not a money grabber, which is not to say I don't want to make money in my business, the same as you all do. But I believe in a fair fee, and I will give an awful lot away for free, which my coach consistently tells me I shouldn't be doing, but there you go. And I am not going to do this for you. I no longer done for you, but what I am and what I do is I know stuff. I've worked in accounts for best part probably 30 years, of which the last 14 of them, 15 of them have been helping, as I run my own bookkeeping practice, helping small business owners. I have sort of tons of experience and knowledge on this. I have testimonials I'm happy to share. I don't expect you to take my word for it. And I like to make things simple. Self-assessment tax returns. If you are employed and self-employed, or just self-employed, or have very, very simple financial affairs, it is absolutely possible to do your own tax return and not have to pay an accountant to do it for you. I accept that accountants are absolutely needed. They are good at what they do, and if you have complicated affairs, they will save you money. However, as I say, if you are just a service-based sole trader, then it's absolutely possible to do it yourself. So very, very quickly on, I'm just going to share with you the 6 simple steps to get it done before Christmas. So this is your tax return for 22-23. Tax year ended 5th of April 2023. And the final filing date is the 31st of January the following year, which would be 2024. So why would you do it now? Why would you not have done it already? Well, there's a million reasons for this. And the main one is that people think they do it on the 31st of January, but that's not actually true. That is, you have got nearly 10 months to do it. And always, always do I say, do it as soon as you possibly can, because just because you do it doesn't mean to say you've got to file it. Just if you do file it, because, well, why not? It's not going to change. You don't have to pay it till the 31st of January. You just know whether you made a profit or you made a loss even. And if you made a profit, how much tax you need to pay, and have you saved it up already? If so, stick it in a savings account to earn some more money for you, or you know, you put it somewhere safe. You know you've got it. If you haven't saved it up, you've got time to do that. Finding out on the 31st of January that you've got a few grand to pay and not having it doesn't bode well with HMRC. They're not the most sympathetic of people, and it will cost you more. There would be an automatic interest and penalty for not paying, filing and paying on time, which we all work really hard for our money, and we don't want to be giving them any more than what they already want. If you, however, have made a loss, that is still worth filing, but it's, you need to know why, and it's not always a bad thing. Clearly, the last few years have taught us that lots of businesses made losses through no fault of their own, but sometimes if you don't know you're making a loss, it's useful to know that sooner than later so you can go and do something about it. However, we are going to, so if you haven't done your 22-23 tax return, but you know you have to do one, and you were maybe thinking, and you've been promising yourself all year, I'll do it, and you haven't. I know we're at the end of November. I know December is ridiculously busy for most of us, but it is still possible to get it done. And these are the steps you need to take. So basically, 6 reasons why you need to do it now is stress. So don't stress on it, don't ignore it, don't moan about it, don't procrastinate, and it is easier than what you think. So let's do this. So the first thing that I would suggest everybody does is to go and check the software. Find your government gateway ID. This is something you possibly only use to log in once a year. Go find your user ID, find your password, make sure that the phone that you linked to this for your access code is the same, and make sure that you can get in. And when you get in, on the front page should be, under self-assessment, will be a box that says, please complete your self-assessment tax return for 2022-23. If it does not say that, it may be, especially if this is your first year, that you haven't actually told them that you need to do one. Fortunately, I cannot show you any screens on this because there are no demo screens, and I would be having to show you mine, and mine's already set up. So all I would suggest you do is go and log in, see if you can make sure you can see where it is you're supposed to go to log in to do the tax return. If you're not sure, just screenshot what you can see and send me in a message and go, where do I go now? But just be assured that whatever you click in there, you're not going to break anything. It's okay to go and have a look around. Once you do get into that, and maybe go in and maybe answer the first 3 pages of questions, it's the usual stuff. Name, address, have you moved, date of birth, email address, have you got a job, do you do this, do you do that? Anything you put in that does not go anywhere until you press submit at the very, 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 very end. So you can go in and put that you're Mickey Mouse if you like, and it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't go anywhere. It just saves what you did. So the first question it's going to ask is, where does your income come from? So if you have jobs, then you are going to need a P45 or a P60 from every single job employment that you had between the 6th of April 22 and the 5th of April 23. If you left a job, it'll be a P45. If you were still in that job at the end of the year, you'll get a P60 from them. If those jobs had portals where you went in for your pay slips and things, it's likely to be in there. I would always recommend, if you are in a job that has a portal with all of this information on, go in and download everything. Do not rely on the portal to be available to you in the future when you need it. Go in and download everything. It'll be PDFs. It'll take up no room on your computer, but you will need one of those for every employment that you had. Self-employment. So sole trader, you are going to need the gross income from each business that you had. So if you are a tutor, but you also bake cakes or walk dogs or sell Avon or a million and one other things you could do, you're going to need a gross income from each of those businesses. Strictly speaking, you do not add them together. You have to enter each business separately if they are very, very clearly different things. Other ways that you might have income are from interest on savings, from if you're child benefit, if you have a house or land, or you rent a room out in your house to tenants. If some other benefits are taxable, not all. If you have a pension, whether that be state pension, private pension, overseas pension, any overseas income, anything else where you get your money. Do you have dividends because you own shares in limited companies or PLCs? Anything and everything that you get your income from. And that's basically the questions on the first 3 pages. So prepare yourself for that. Just a note on sole trader gross income. If you use a payment platform like Stripe, Go Cardless, PayPal, or Card Machine, and they deduct their fees before they give you the money. So somebody pays them £100 by a card, they deduct £2 fees, give you £98. Your gross income is £100, not 98. So just be a little bit aware of that. However, the £2 becomes an expense, which we'll go into later. So while it makes no difference whether you declare the 98 with no costs or the £100 with fees, by only putting in £98 as income, you are actually under declaring income, and that is it's frowned upon. So if we can get it right, let's get it right. The next thing is mileage. Maybe not quite as important as it once was, but mileage for any business journey, wholly business journey. So not to, if you've got a job, you can't have commuting mileage, not no way. But if you are a sole trader and you go to see a client, a supplier, you go to the bank for a business, put money in, you go to a conference, you go training, anything that is a business journey, and all you have to do is there are apps, but I like spreadsheets and pen and paper. So just basically a list. That's all you need, like that. So date, from, to, why you're going, how many miles, and we're going to times it by 45p. Now, there is an option on kind of car expenses, but it gets very, very complicated, and you have to keep receipts on everything. This is much the simplest way, and I have yet to come across anybody whereby the mileage does not equal, or actually might be more than, or is at least almost as much as doing it the complicated way. This is much the easiest way. So the next thing is purchases. HMRC says that as a sole trader, any purchase that you make that is wholly and exclusively for the needs of the business. And by that, we mean that it has to be all for the business and only for the business. However, there are a couple of bits in there that could have dual purpose, like your mobile phone, like your home broadband. I have a PDF which I can put in the group, and I'm happy to share with anybody else who is perhaps not in the community yet, called Common Allowable Expenses for Self-Employed Tutors. So, it does what it says on the tin, basically, and it goes through everything that you would reasonably be expected to claim as a cost. Limits and loans. So, if your turnover is more than £85,000, normally speaking, you would need to be registered for VAT, and your self-assessment tax return is VAT exclusive numbers. However, most of you are going to be in education, teaching things that are on school curriculums or college curriculums. VAT, that's exempt, so it becomes a little bit more complicated. If anybody is in that situation, come and have a chat separately. I'm assuming for the sake of this presentation that most of you are not anywhere near 85k turnover, and therefore it does not apply, in which case do not worry about it. You are going to be asked one of the questions: have you done your calculations under cash basis? Everybody else goes, well, what does that mean? Basically, that means that you are counting your income and expenses as the money comes in or goes out. So regardless of whatever date the invoice was that you sent to your client, it's the date that the money comes in. The traditional way of doing things is to go on the date. So if you raised an invoice on the 31st of March, but didn't get paid it until, say, the 15th of April, under cash basis, it will go in the April, so in the later tax year. Under traditional accounting, it would go in the earlier tax year. Cash basis is always the simplest to use because you just look at your bank account and go, yeah, it came in, it went out, it went out. So always, there are some limits on that, that if you have finance, interest, bank charges, things like that, that exceed £500 in the tax year, you are not allowed to use cash basis. But I really can't see that being an issue for most service-based sole traders, because we very rarely need big loans or anything like that. So cash basis, always the simplest. And loans, if you have had a loan, and this includes the bounce back loans that some of us got in during the pandemic, just be aware that the money coming in from a loan is not income, and the money that you repay is not an expense except the interest bit. So you have to split your payment. If you're paying back an amount that is part capital and part interest, the interest bit you can claim as an expense. The repayment of the capital is exactly that. It is a repayment, not an expense. As I said, I can't see that that's going to be very, very common, but it's there. And the last one is the extra expenses. So these are the little bits that you don't pay out as a business expense, but they are an expense on the business. Oh, that sounds a bit contradictory, but things like working from home. If you work from home, then clearly you're going to incur more heating and lighting and energy costs than if you were actually going out to work in an office or a school or wherever. There is a sliding scale for work from home, which is somewhere between £10 and £26 a month, depending on how many hours a month you work from home. There again, same as with the mileage, there is a different way of doing this, where you take all of your bills, you add them up and you divide it by the number of rooms and you divide it by this, that and the next thing. Quite complicated. The work from home is much the easiest. There are more details on that in the PDF in the download. And the other two things that you can claim, and it's a few pounds, but again, you know, it's a few pounds that means that it'll reduce your tax bill, is mobile phone and home broadband for when you're working from home. So mobile phone, I have a dual SIM phone. So I put one through the business, one I pay for personally. Doesn't matter that the calls get mixed up because I can never remember which is which. So one goes through the business. However, most people do actually only have one telephone number, one phone. You have to kind of work out and guess the business use percentage of the use of that phone. So if you use your phone a lot, if you do most of your communicating with customers, clients on the phone, doing social media, if you advertise, doing admin on your phone, raising invoices, doing emails on your phone, then you know you might be looking at 20%, 30%, 50%. Claim that percent of your monthly tariff. Keep one of your bills, scribble on it your justification for that percentage, and just keep it with the rest of your paperwork. You're never, same as with work from home, you're probably not ever going to be asked to prove this, provided you keep it reasonable. Home broadband is the same again. You need to work out what your business use percentage is. So in my case, I claim 75% of our broadband fee because I'm at my desk full time, all day, every day. My husband is retired and there's only the two of us here. However, if we had 5 teenage kids doing the streaming and the gaming and the films and the downloading and the whatever else it is that teenagers do these days, I'm too old to remember, my percentage business use would probably be much, much less, like, I don't know, maybe 10%. And do remember that this is only the broadband bit of your bill. If you have one of these bills that has entertainment packages and film packages and everything, it's not that, it's just the broadband bit. So there you go. And again, it's just a quick justification as to why you picked that particular percentage. So 1, 2, 3, take a deep breath, go and sign in and just go and get it done. As I say, it really isn't going to be as painful as you think if you get all of your data and your numbers together before you start. And even if you get partway through and you think, oh, I didn't go and find that, I haven't got that, it's fine. You can stop, you can come out, you can go back in many times as you like. I have got no idea what that graphic means. I only did this the other day, but what I'm actually saying is that do not submit until you are 100% sure that you have done everything that you can possibly do. There is time to do this yet. And as I say, you can go in and out as many times as you like. And I am happy to answer questions at any time. You can come and you can just ask questions, because usually it's just be a common sense thing. It'll just be a quick, oh, is that the right answer to that? So when you're ready to submit, but you're still a bit scared, I've been doing an offer all year, which people have found useful, and I'm happy to support you and to say, yes, you answered all those questions correctly, and go through and check that you didn't forget everything. And then I can virtually hold your hand whilst we press that big green submit button together. People have said they found this quite useful this year. It is the first time I've done it. And if you get this done before Christmas, currently that's 25% off and it's £72. If you come to me in January for that service, it will be 96, because January is just going to be a bit mad, because 13 million people need to do a self-assessment tax return and 6.5 million of them leave it until January for no good reason, but they do. So the bonus is, if you can do this in December, I've got a help desk that's running till the end of the year, and I've got drop-ins. So you're going to get, you can gather up to another 5 hours of drop-in where you can come and work through it and ask your questions and have me on tap. There will be a checklist that goes with this presentation. So I can see some of you feverishly writing notes, but there is a recording for this that you can have back, and there will be a checklist. And as I say, anybody that does sign up for that, I will be absolutely here to answer your questions. Not quite 24/7, I do sleep sometimes, but you know, on any kind of wherever you want to message me, whether it's on Messenger, whether it's an email, whether it's a WhatsApp, or whether it's in the QT community, I do check in very, very often on all of those. So I know that was a whistle-stop tour, but those are the steps that, if you still need it to do, and especially if it's your first one, that you can do. So we had some questions kept popping up, but I couldn't see them. Let's have a look at that. So if you sell teaching resources books, can this be part of your yes, it can. My understanding is that you do not pay VAT for courses where there is interaction, but it starts. I'm not a VAT expert. I would need to look that up. But however, if we are talking about you holding the costs and people paying you for them, yeah, we'd need to look up the rules. I'm happy to do that with you, Anna, if we have a kind of a more detailed conversation about that, so we can see exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, that would be great, Tracy, because I have been reading about this, and it seems that if there is an element of interaction, because these are self-paced courses where they watch some videos, but then they have an element where they see me, then it counts as part of the tutoring. But if it's like fully self-paced, then that's when you start to worry about VAT. Anyway, I'm not at 85,000, so it's not something that
I was going to say, as long as we're not anywhere near that turnover.
I'm not anywhere near there, but imagine my life goes amazingly well and everyone wants to buy my course. I would like to be prepared. And
Yeah,
that's
fine.
Yeah, I'm not near the 85, so I'm not worried about that.
A lot of it is actually also going to depend on what subjects you teach, because there are funny rules around that as well. So okay, and the 45 pence, no, it does not change depending on car fuel prices. That is 45 pence, and it is basically a random figure that's been in use for lots and lots of years. They haven't put it up for about a decade, but it is to cover the running costs of your car. So it covers depreciation, servicing, MOTs, fuel. Only a very small portion of that is for the fuel, but that's what that is. Okay. When paying tutors that work for you, and if it does this, yes, it absolutely does work for you. If you've got that. If you are employing them and running a payroll, then it's staff wages. If they are subcontractors and giving you an invoice, again, that's X category. Does it fall under? Doesn't actually matter. It is just an allowable business expense. If you did want to classify it, when you're asked to put your expenses into your tax return, they will ask, do you want to do one single figure or do you want to break it down? I would always say, even if you've got it broken down, just give them one figure. I know this is being recorded and I know it'll go out there and I probably shouldn't say this, but don't give them any more information that you don't have to, so just give them the one figure, so long as you have the breakdown and you know where you've spent your money. Make sure that it is all legitimately business. Then it could come under staff/labor, I think, is one of the categories, so you could put it under there. But yes, if you're paying people to deliver a service on your behalf, or you're paying a VA to help you with your admin, absolutely a business expense. That's the perfect emoji. Yeah, I quite like that as well. So do things get much more complicated when you are employed at the same time as being self-employed? Not really, because what the self-assessment does is it takes your total income. So that would be your gross income from your employment. So it'll add them all up together if you've got more than one. I have recently been working with quite a lot of veterinary locums, and some of them have up to sort of 5 0-hours contracts and are sole traders as well. So they need to add all of that information together. The return will add up gross income from employment plus profit from self-employment to get your total taxable income for the year. Then they deduct your tax-free allowance, which is normally 12,570, to work out the amount on which you need to pay tax. So they'll work out the figure and then they'll go, oh, but actually you've paid some of that already on your job, so you only owe us this amount. So that's how it works. If you've got any more questions about that, by all means message me, but I think that's probably as simple as I can make that. If I have mileage that I've claimed a refund on through the agency I worked for, I can't claim through my tax return. Yes, you can, but you'd have to put it in on both sides. So the agency might not pay you 45 pence a mile, they might only pay you 30 pence a mile. So you have to put that 30 pence a mile in as income, but then you would claim 45 pence a mile for incurring that cost. So you can make a little bit extra on that. Even if it's the same, it depends. If they've reimbursed you as an expense outside of the pay that they give you, then no, you don't have to put it on there. But if you do put it on, you can put it on as an in and an out, and it won't make any difference anyway. So it'll just depend on how they've paid you. I do exam marking and they use PA. Why do I need to factor? No, HMRC will calculate that. So regardless of whatever code they have used on your employment, HMRC will just add it all together anyway, because they just use that code because they don't know what else you've got going on. So it could be basic rate if you've told them you've got other work. It could be your normal standard tax code and they'll think that's all you've got. So they will work it out for you. So
I don't need to worry at all. I just said I got paid this much.
Yeah, you use your P60,
they sort it out,
and that will add it all up for you. Yeah. Okay. Would getting a private insurance tutoring count as expense as well? Do you mean professional indemnity insurance? In which case, yes, absolutely, that's a business allowable expense. Not sure what else private insurance for tutoring would be. Do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yes, that's exactly the one that I meant.
Yeah. So professional indemnity insurance, yes, absolutely. You should all have that. And that is definitely an allowable business expense. So, okay. And I recommend an easy way to calculate. Okay, you've been so 12th of the 12 and then saving 20%. That doesn't cover NI. No, it doesn't cover NI. I would, to make it easy, I would normally say to people, okay, so of all of the income coming in, save 30%, because that would be 20% for income tax, and your class 4 national insurance is 9%. Granted, both of those are over a certain profit threshold. Class 2 currently is £3.45 a week. They are being abolished from, I think it's April, or is it class 4 that's going to? Employee national insurance is being reduced to 10% from 12% in January. However, and I did write some notes on this when I listened to the autumn statement last week, and I can't just quite remember because they haven't started banging on about it yet. Even if it's being changed in January, you won't actually notice it until you do your 23-24 tax return. The way you've been doing it, Catherine, the 12th of the allowance and saving 20% of what's left is possibly not going to be enough. And if it's the first tax return, it's definitely not going to be enough, because I'll just kind of throw this in now that I probably should have mentioned in the thing is, if this is your first tax return and if your liability is more than £1,000, you will be required to pay 150% of that in January, because we all have to make payments on account. Then you'll have to pay another 50% in July, which means that by the time you get to do your second tax return, you've already made payments on account equal to the amount that you paid the first year. And then it'll only ever be half and half and half and half until you get to your very final year, and it'll all work its way out. So that first tax return that you do can hurt if you haven't saved enough. So where I just said save 30% of all your income coming in, if it's your first one and it's like a full year, save 40%. Absolute best case scenario is you've saved far too much and you'll have a little savings pot at the end of the year. But it's better to save too much than not enough, because as I said, they're not very sympathetic if you haven't. Mileage for any form of transport. No. If you take the bus, a boat, a taxi, a train, then you claim the ticket value, whatever you paid as your fare. Mileage is just for business miles in a privately owned vehicle. So it doesn't have to be the same vehicle all the time, but it would be, that's just for the car. Private pension healthcare. Private healthcare medical insurance is not an allowable business expense for a sole trader, because it is not wholly and exclusively for the needs of the business. It's a bit like food. We need it to live. So it's not wholly and exclusively business. So no, private healthcare medical insurance, no. Pension, slightly different. If you are contributing to a private pension scheme, there is a question on the tax return about that. And whilst the contributions are not an allowable business expense, so you can't include them there, you do put the contributions in on a different part and you get tax relief on it. So it's an absolute no-brainer to do anyway. And especially if you're a higher rate taxpayer, it's even more of a no-brainer. So if you do make contributions to a private pension scheme, you'll need those details as well to put into your self-assessment tax return to reduce your tax bill. The PDF I mentioned, you're not yet a QT member. Claire, send me a message on one of the ways that I put in. I'll put it here. Oops, small business. Oh, I can't spell this morning. Coach. Right, I've just put an email address in the chat. If anybody wants that PDF, by all means, just drop me a line on there, or find me on Facebook. It's just Tracy Robertson, or the number for business WhatsApp is that. Business miles, how do you show this in a limited business? Does that mean you are incorporated as a limited company?
Yes, I've got a limited company.
Yeah, so
I haven't set myself up as a sole trader.
You have or you haven't?
No, I've set myself up as a limited company.
You're limited, right? Okay. So this presentation is probably not very relevant to you, because if you're a limited company, you'll have an accountant and they're likely to do your self-assessment tax return for you, because you will also have to include the dividend, which will be the profit from your limited company, as well as you may also be employed by your limited company. You can claim expenses from your limited company. So business miles like that, I just put the expense in under your director's loan account. So yeah, 45 pence a mile, just as an expense to the company, and take that money out. If you need a bit of a further explanation, again, send me a message, but your accountant should be able to explain that to you anyway. So I think that's the bottom of those questions, but I did have a question at the very beginning. Somebody wanted to know how to save on the bits. The bits in my mind are the work from home, the mobile, the broadband. So I'm hoping that covered that, but if not, drop a chat and I'll do that in a second. Trading allowance. Okay. If your income, so not profit, but if your income is less than £1,000 in the tax year, you are not obliged to do a self-assessment tax return or declare that to HMRC in any way. However, it does mean that if you don't declare the income at £1,000, you cannot claim costs for that same period. So if your costs are under £1,000, then yeah, just claim £1,000, and don't tell them. So if your income and your costs are both under £1,000, then I'd perhaps look at whether you're actually running a business or whether you've just got a bit of an expensive hobby. If your costs exceed your turnover, so if your income is £800, but your costs are 900, or your costs are 1,200 or whatever, but because there's a reason for that. Perhaps you've invested into lots of things. This is your first year and you haven't quite started yet. Perhaps you didn't start till the middle of March and you've only got a couple of weeks in there. It is sometimes and often beneficial to do a tax return that shows a loss, because that loss can be carried forward to the next year when you make a profit, and you'll pay less tax then. If you do not do a tax return because your income was less than £1,000, but you spent more than that, you cannot then carry those costs forward. You just basically write off the whole period. So depending on whether this was just you tried it and you're not going to do it again, or you have just started and you are definitely going to carry on. As a service-based business, there is absolutely no chance that you will not make a profit on this if you're charging your worth. That does mean that making a profit means you'll have a tax bill. Paying tax is a good thing. It means you're making money. So, don't think that, you don't want to be paying tax. You do want to be paying tax, because it does mean that then that you're making a decent amount of money, and we all need that to live on, especially these days. So I hope that covers the trading allowance question that I had earlier. If it doesn't, as I say, pop it in the thing, and I'll go into a bit more detail. I've just had how do you claim back the costs of a training course that was paid for on a credit card? Okay, so training is, if it is to refresh or update existing skills, is absolutely fine. If it is a new skill, it is not an allowable expense as a sole trader. HMRC are very, very clear on that. However, if it is allowable, however you pay for an allowable business expense does not matter. It does not matter if it comes out of the bank account that you use for your business, money in and money out. Doesn't matter if you stuck it on a personal credit card. Doesn't matter if your granny paid it. Doesn't matter how it was paid for. If it's an allowable business expense, you just include it on your list of expenses. So I hope that. How do they decide? They don't decide, Anna. You decide. And as I said, the wording is quite clear. So hang on, just let me.
Sometimes I think the line is a bit thin there, because how it, like, say, if I'm teaching a certain subject and I want to teach another subject, is this still part of my tutoring, or am I like branching out to something else, and then they would not consider it?
Yeah, that is
CPD. I don't know.
Yeah, that is the wording that HMRC gives us. So all I would say is, be very careful how it is described on your invoice, so that it comes under improving skills and knowledge, for example, or updating refresher, or if there's if you're teaching a subject that has new legislation or new information coming through each year or something. But if you are a maths tutor and you suddenly want to become a hairdresser, then clearly that's completely new.
Well, that's different. Yeah,
just not allowed.
But to continue with the maths teacher, if you're a maths teacher and suddenly you want to be a biology teacher, and this is all theoretical, would that be part of improving your knowledge? Because it's part of being a teacher, but then you're teaching a different subject.
Improve the skills and knowledge you use in your business. You see, you could say that was expanding into new areas of business, including anything related to your current business. So in that case, no. But as I say, see how it is worded, and see, like anything else with business expenses, you have to be able to kind of explain and justify. If HMRC were to ever come along and pick on you and go, I'm going to look at your tax return, and we want to know what that expense is to that person there, and you say, well, it's excuse me, it was this, and they go, now we don't agree. The worst case scenario is, excuse me, that they will go, no, we don't agree, so we want back the tax that you didn't pay by virtue of claiming it in the first place, which is probably going to be 20%. They might then say, well, it was a reasonable assumption for you to make. We just don't agree that it was the right decision, so therefore have a little tiny fine. They might say, well, it was a bit of a grey area, but you could reasonably have been expected to come and ask us or go and ask an expert or an accountant, but you didn't, so here, have a bigger fine. Or they will say, actually, no, that was a really, really stupid thing to think that you could get away with that. And trust me, I've seen some real good ones, like claiming your honeymoon to Las Vegas because your wife was going with you and she's a company director as well, and you had a meeting out there. Yes, it was at that point I disengaged from that particular client. And they will just say, well, no, that you absolutely knew you couldn't have that, but you included it anyway, and that's fraud, and here's a massive fine. And by the way, you're on our radar, and we'll come and check you again next year, and the year after, and the year after that. But it is a big if they ever come and ask the question. Now, some people go a whole lifetime and never have an HMRC investigation. Some people are very unlucky and have several. They are random. It is not necessarily anything that you will do or not do that makes them come and look at you. However, they are upping the ante. In the last 12 months, there's been an increase of 20% of random investigations on small business owners and sole traders, because with all the money the government spent during the pandemic, they've got to get it back somehow, and it's easier to hit the little guy, because they'll come along, look at your things, look at what you've sent in and go, well, actually, we don't agree, we want another few £100, £1,000, couple of £1,000 from you. And most of us are going to go, there you go, and give it to them, because that will make them go away and not look any further. You'd like to think they'd go after the big corporates who do lots of tax saving, shall we call it, but they will wrap them up for years in court and with accountants and with lawyers and with everything else. So it's just much quicker to come and get lots of little amounts from people like you and me. And there is nothing that we can do about it. There will always be these random checks, but they are random, and numbers wise, they're minimal, so the likelihood of being asked is still very, very small, but you just have to be prepared to answer the questions, if they do come along to ask. So really, at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. Spiritual coach wants to take a psychology course because it helps with the coaching. Again, it's how you're going to want to explain and justify that. 20% non-taxable, that is kind of the effect on it. So basically you put the expense in and it's going to reduce your tax bill by 20% of the cost of that course. That's how tax works. So again, just be very careful with the wording, and that if it is to improve the way you already coach, then I would probably say that, yeah, probably then that's okay. Is that cheeky question, a new roof on your to create a classroom? Usually no. That is, can I claim if I want a new roof on my conservatory and building work on my garage to create a classroom, and that's where my office is in my home? No, this is all the garden sheds that everybody built in lockdown. Buildings, if it's a building structure, no, because it's not wholly and exclusively business, because it's part of your home. If you built a garage or a room on the side of your house solely for business, you become open to capital gains tax whenever you sell your house for that part of the house. You become open to business rates from your local authority, which means you may or may not have to pay that. So if you have a room that you convert into a classroom, then you can have any of the decoration bits, anything to do with security, anything to do with, furniture, equipment in there. Absolutely, yes. But actually the building structure, no, I'm afraid not. Chiropractor bills, not to go since, afraid not, because it's not wholly and your health is not wholly and exclusively a business expense. So chiropractic bills, osteopath bills because you hurt your back or whatever, then absolutely, I'm afraid not, no. How do HMRC check you? Any number of ways. They might just pick up on, there is no list that defines what they will ask for, but they would probably start with asking for a breakdown of what your income and expenses were. They may ask you to give bank statements, which is why we always say use a separate bank account for your sole trader money in and out, because it just makes it harder for them to ask for the other bit. They're more likely to do things like if they look online and on social media and see that you're having, 4 really exotic, expensive holidays every year, and you've got brand new car every 6 months, and on lots of things like this, and you're only declaring that you earn £10,000, then they're going to come and check. So, just do it properly, really. Percentage of expense in terms of new. Many is, if you're using that technology in the classroom, then it's business expense. Doesn't matter what it is, but just remember that anything that you spend as a business expense, although you can claim it's a business expense and you'll save tax on it, that money's still coming out of your pocket. It's still your money. So if you got £1,000 in and didn't spend anything, you've got £1,000. If you've got £1,000 in and spend £800, even if it was for things, you might save 20% of that on tax, but you've still spent £800, you've only got £200 left. So it's still your money, so just because you can claim it as an allowable business expense doesn't mean to say you should go and spend all your money if you absolutely need it for paying your bills and living. The Health and Care Professions Council. Oh, I'm sure it probably is, yes. And that case, so it's very, very quickly, is there any other questions? Does anybody want to see any of the slides again? Do you want the
I
link?
just have one question, if that's all right.
Yes, sure.
Just in terms of mileage, as you explained, for a private vehicle, and then in terms of taking a journey by a tube or train or anything else,
Yeah.
if I pay from a card or my phone, but obviously it all shows in my bank account, is that proof enough to submit, or does it, because nobody
you should have a receipt or an invoice for every expense, but I get that, like on some of the tubes and buses now, you don't, do you? Because you just flash your phone or flash your card. So yeah, as long as, if it's quite clearly on the bank statement, it's TfL, Transport for London or whatever, then that's fine. Yeah. You may, again, it's difficult to, if you were ever asked, you just have to prove that you were going to somewhere for business. So you were going to a client's house, or you were going to a training session for yourself or whatever. So that's it. So no, as long as it's a proof of purchase that explains what it was,
okay,
then that should be sufficient. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the link I've just dropped is the discounted hour, which is available up to Christmas. That will then cease, as I say, for January. I might bring that back in April to do next year. So for those of you who have to do a 22-23, even if you don't come back to me, please do it as soon as you possibly can. Don't leave it till January and cause yourself stress. If you've only just started and you only have to do a 23-24, please start looking at it in April, and don't leave it much later in the year.
Thank you so much, Tracy. What a fantastically helpful and beneficial session for everybody here. I think having half an hour of having an expert answer all our questions is invaluable. Thank you, everybody, for being so engaging and asking your honest and open questions. You'll be getting an email at about 12:15 with that link to book in the discounted session with Tracy. I am sure once they're gone, they're all gone. So if you do want this exceptional support, you can use that link that's in there. For those of you that are members, you'll have access to this recording in the community. But if you need anything at all, please feel free to shout out to me on hello@, and I'm sure Tracy, as you've kindly suggested, you've put your email address in there as well. So any questions, anything you need, please give us a shout. Now I'm going to go and have a big glass of cold coffee. I have submitted and paid my self-assessment tax return this year, which was terrifying, because that was also the payment on account, which I was very surprised about the first time I had to do that. So that was really helpful. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Agnieszka. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Cecile. Thank you, Claire again. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Antonia. And thank you, Sharon. Have a lovely afternoon, everybody. Thank you.